Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. It's a nice morning. I love these cool fall mornings. Oh, it's so refreshing. Open your Bibles this morning to Proverbs chapter 3. I feel like I go here pretty often. Proverbs chapter 3. I've actually talked about this before, but I'm going to talk about it again, and I'm going to add some more stuff to it. I feel like it can be overwhelming sometimes to believers, especially new Christians, at the amount of information that they think that they're going to have to learn. Especially, if you feel like you have wasted part of your life not pursuing after the things of God, and then you become a Christian, and then you're like, man, there's so much for me to learn. I don't know if I'll have enough time. I wonder how much, you just feel this pressure. But, it's just like everything else. Today I was talking to David this morning, and, today's Jimmy's birthday. And he said he's 13 today, and I said, man, how does it happen so quickly? And he said, just one day at a time. And that's exactly how it happens. And learning the statutes of God are the same. It happens the same way. You just don't be discouraged by the idea of how much there is to learn, and just eat what you're given every day. Your daily bread, that's what it is. And so these things we're going to talk about here this morning are very fundamental. They're foundational, and they're simple. But there's so much of our life that's built on these little principles, and yet we get so overwhelmed with the size of what's built on them that you don't realize how important and simple, but important, the little thing. It's kind of like the foundation of a home. You see it one time, and then you bury it forever, and you never see it again. But the entire house's structure, its integrity depends upon the foundation being there. And your faith is the same way. Everything about your life that amounts to anything or that has any value at all is exactly the same way. If it's not built on the right foundation, then it's not stable, it is not viable, and it will fail you. It'll fail. Eventually, it will fail. And in catastrophic ways that you couldn't hardly even imagine. And so, attention to the details of the simplicity, the simple things, it's vital, very vital. So, we're going to talk about this morning. I want to talk about something that I feel, I was talking to a man this weekend, and we were talking about this things of God and principles of life and things like that. And one of the things that was said was that, the devil, we underestimate how much he hates God. We just think about him as being like the enemy or the opposition or the other side of the coin or the negative to the positive, but he hates God. If he could kill him, he would try. He hates everything about him. He hates every good thing that comes from him. He hates it. He is an enemy of God. And so everything that comes from the mind of God for humanity, the devil hates it too. And he tries his best to destroy it. But something that he enjoys more than destroying what come from the mind of God for humanity is to get the thing God created to destroy it. He loves that more. He enjoys that more. Matter of fact, he puts a lot more effort into making it happen that way than him just destroying it. Most of the destruction comes from the hand of what God created, and it destroys itself. Through sin. That's what sin is. And that's his method. And so in that understanding that concept of Satan, of the devil, of how bad he hates God and God's statutes and his ways, everything about him, it stands to reason that he would take what is true and then just rearrange the pieces a little bit and give it back to you. And the deception happens in the fact that you think you still hold the truth, but it's scrambled. And it's not going to work. It's like, the timing gears and chain in an engine, and if it's off 3 degrees, it's not going to run right. And eventually it's going to destroy the motor. And I feel like so often we're off a few teeth in that timing gear when it comes to the simple things. And it distorts the way that we understand everything else after that. If you've got a house, once again, I run into this every single day of my life as a builder, that when you're dealing with a foundation and if it's off, if it's out of square by a ½ inch, you're going to fight that ½ inch all the way until you drive the last nail and the last shingle on the roof. You're going to fight it. Because one little mistake in the beginning affects every single thing about the rest of the whole project. And so it's really important that we get the simple things. They're undervalued. The simple things are just what them kids are learning back here in Sunday school class, right? Singing songs and learning Bible stories and stuff. But that is what the rest of their faith will be built on. Do we not realize that? And so think about the influences, the many influences and voices that speak into your life as you go through life, and how many of them are coming from the wrong place that then get wove into the fabric of how you understand Christianity, how you understand what God expects from you, how you understand mercy and truth and love and commandments and laws and trust and all these things we're going to talk about here this morning. If it's off just a little bit, then everything's going to be off. And so I want to read our scripture real quick. Very familiar, and I don't want to lose my time. My son, verse number 1, chapter 3, Proverbs 3:1. My son, forget not my law, but let thine heart keep my commandments. Let thine heart keep my commandments. We could just stop right there and just talk about that alone. Verse 2, for length of days and long life and peace shall they add to thee. Let not mercy and truth forsake thee. Bind them about thy neck. Write them upon the table of thine heart. So shalt thou find favor and good understanding in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Be not wise in thine own eyes. Fear the Lord, and depart from evil. It shall be health to thy navel, and marrow to thy bones. There's a lot in those 8 little verses. Just like an engine needs oil to live. To not destroy itself. I want to talk about this morning, what I want to talk about is relationships in this matter of trust. Okay? Trust is a thing that we all consider in our life at some point or another. For some people, everything in their whole life hinges upon the center pin of trust. And then there's other people that don't trust anybody. There's people that trust people too much. There's people that put their trust in the wrong things. And ultimately, though, the goal is that we understand what trust is and how it's to be implemented in our lives, and have godly discernment in what and who to have trust in. So then trust becomes this thing that, it's like, if we're not careful, we'll start to look at it as this possession almost. Or think about it in a different light so that see, remember, the devil's trying to take something that God gave us and just mess with it just a little bit. And now it doesn't quite, you can't make it math out in your mind, make it make sense. There's so much confusion in our world today, even in the spiritual cultures of today, about what God is, who He is, what He wants, His character, all these. That's why there's 7,000 varieties of God, it seems. But nobody really seems to be able to understand what it is that He is and what He wants. And it's because of these things that we're talking about here. You know, an engine has to have oil to survive. And any relationship that you're in has to have an element of trust involved in it. I have to trust my wife. She has to trust me in order for there to be a healthy relationship there. You know, a relationship with my dad. There has to be a certain element of trust that's mutual, or else it's going to be a lopsided relationship. There's going to be one side that trusts more than he needs to, and the other side that doesn't trust when he should. There's got to be balance, and it's got to be, trust is not built out on thin air. Trust is something that is built on the foundation of other things. And, you know, I see people that try to take a relationship and make it have trust when they've not done the work, the foundational work for trust to be built upon. And it's almost like there's an imaginative relationship that they didn't invest any time in, but they're working on the trust. But they didn't do the foundational work. The harder a motor works without any oil in it, the faster it's going to just destroy itself. And have you ever heard a motor with no oil in it? What it starts to sound like? Bang, 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 bang. And then it sounds very labored, like it's pulling something, but it's not. And then it just, that's it. It's done. Well, that's what relationships do when you try to force trust. And you try to force the relationship, but there's no trust there. Okay? The matter of trust must be closely monitored in every relationship. If you don't give it its due benevolence, and I'm talking about any relationship, do you trust the Lord? It gets talked about a lot. Do we trust the Lord? You know, just have faith in God. See somebody going through a hard time there, you just need to trust the Lord. Well, that sounds good, and it's a true statement on it. You know, it's kind of stands alone in its own right, but we're just kind of throwing it out there and hoping that it has the effect on their life that we would like to see it have. But do they trust the Lord? Well, it's kind of like where we feel like our responsibility ends and we just go on about our way. And we feel like we've checked that box for being an encouragement and, you know, saying what needed to be said as a Christian, I guess. But without trust, the nature of a relationship changes. You know, I know people that I did trust at one time, and that trust has been breached. And so now, the nature of our relationship has changed. There's a guarded stance. You ever heard anybody say, well, I keep them right here? I mean, we're close, but I keep them right here. What's that mean? Well, it means there's a guarded relationship now. The boundaries have got a lot more established and a lot more high. Because of why? Well, because of betrayal of trust. Meaning, I don't trust them. I'm friendly, but I don't trust them. I've heard people say, I don't trust that guy no further than I could pick him up and throw him. I know some of them too. The devil's always sowing seeds of doubt, which is the opposite and the enemy of trust. Think about how in a family, just like an extended family group, a family, you ever known a family that was tight? And then over time you see them just fracture and kind of drift apart. And, 10, 15 years later, they don't really know what's going on in each other's lives. They don't know anything about each other's kids. They don't go to anything for each other's families. They don't get together. Maybe a couple of them will get together, but it's kind of toxic, really. They get together and talk about how much the other family don't like them, or I don't know. It's so unhealthy. Why? Well, because there was a false sense of trust without the work being done that trust requires. There's things that we do to derail trust. And there's things we do that we can do to establish and build it back too. You need to remember that trust is not one of those things that once it's lost, it's like something that's died and it never comes back. You know, if there's one thing that God has established in everything that has to do with him, is that there's always a path to redemption. There's always a pathway to restoration. He himself brought atonement to us through his resurrection from the dead. How much more plain could it be that his desire is to see life restored, is to see something that was, dead be brought back to life, and be something better than it ever was. Well, if he can do that for a lost soul, and that effect is eternal, he can do that with trust. And so can we. There's always a pathway to rebuilding and restoration. But it has to be built on the right things. Trust, you need to understand something. There's a misconception that we have, and I've been guilty of this. I've said these things before. Love, I have said it this way. Love comes from trust. And I've had it literally backwards. Trust starts with love. It starts with love. We shy away from talking about love because we don't want to sound permissive in our religion. Love is honestly, it's kind of demonized in a lot of ways. We shy away from it because we don't want people to think we're just all lovey-dovey and mushy and there's no rules and everybody can do whatever they want because we just love each other. But the Bible says this, beloved, let us love one another. For love is of God. And everyone that loveth is born of God and knoweth God. And he that loveth not knoweth not God. Why? For once again, for God is love. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. You mean those who were to perish now can live forever? Yes. Restoration, redemption, resurrection. Why? Love. Love. You say, and I see it, we went to Springfield this weekend for an engagement party for Wyatt and Gloria. And I don't know, sometimes I feel like my life is a fever dream. They was just little kids, and now, here we go. This is the third one of our children that is, approaching marriage. And, I've heard it said by people, and it's not an untrue statement. Look, I love my wife differently now than I did 27 years ago when we first started looking at each other. But it's a damaging thing to cheapen the love that they have for each other at this stage in their life. How will they ever value building trust if no one values the love that they have right now? Will their love be different 10 years from now? Oh, absolutely. You know why? Because they'll trust each other then, God willing. And we all have a responsibility. We share in the responsibility of bringing our bricks to give to them to help lay the foundation for their trust to be built upon through their love for each other. If we say, well, you think you love each other now, but you're going to love each other. You're going to wake up one day and realize that, no. I feel like I have made mistakes in saying these things before. Because here, look, I know, because I've walked the trail for a while now, that yes, their love will be different, but it doesn't mean like what they have now is not love. It is the seeds of love and hope and promise. What is marriage after all if it's not a promise, a vow, a commitment to build on these things so we can learn to trust? Do you not realize that marriage came from the mind of God? Why? So we could understand how He wants our relationship to grow and develop with Him. And so if trust comes from love between a boy and a girl that have dreams of what their life could be, then is not trusting God, does it not come from the same thing? Is that my love for Him? So we don't love Him. I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember the scripture. We love Him because He first loved us and gave Himself for us. He expressed His love. He extended His love to us in that while we were yet sinners, He died for us. Why? So that we would be compelled to love Him back. Yes. And in all the ways that He extended and provided His love for us, before we ever even before we ever even considered it, was so that we would see that we could trust Him. Love is, everybody says that trust is like faith. But you need to understand that love is like faith. I can love you completely with the chance, with the risk that you won't love me back. How many forlorn young people have you ever seen that feel love for someone and it's not reciprocated and they just pine? Why? Well, because I love her, but she doesn't love me. When it's rejected that way, is that love just being like, you know what? Well, why don't you just go jump off a cliff then? No. If it really is a heartfelt love that way, no. He just backs up and says, all right, well, how can I win her back? Well, how can I win her? How can I prove to her that she can trust my love? Yes. See, trust is built on love, not the other way around. Everybody says, trust me, and you'll grow to love me someday. That sounds a little communistic. Yeah, it kind of doesn't, just don't work that way. Trust starts with love first. And then immediately you need to understand that in relationships, see, that's how relationships begin. The seeds of a relationship began in love, affection, admiration, attraction. It's part of it. But then immediately you need to understand that what's the first verse that we read? He said, my son, before he got to the trust part, before he got to the truth and mercy part, before he got to any of that, he said, my son, you better obey my law. And you better obey my commandments. No, he said, my son, listen. Mercy and truth and trust are going to be paramount in the foundation of your life. But you need to understand that even in those things, don't forget my law. Let your heart keep my commandments. Why? Well, because every relationship that we're in, it doesn't matter if it's with your employer, with your parents, with your children, with your spouse, with your church, with anyone. There is law and there is commandments. Look, when I married her, I made some promises that I didn't really understand. And as the years have rolled by, there's been a whole lot more things that I didn't promise that I've had to conform to. Why? Because there's rules. There's rules about relationships. Yes. And it's funny because everybody's a little different, and you grow to know that the longer you're together with someone. I can tell by the look on her face whether I need to speak or not sometimes, and what I need to say. Now, that sounds like she's super hard to deal with. No. Look, she's a person. And the longer you're with someone and the longer there's trust there and love grows, you start to key into their tells. And look, in our marriage, might not be this way for your marriage, but in our marriage, there's laws and commandments. There's guidelines, okay, that we just have conformed to with each other without it being in writing or anything else like that, because of trust and because of love. There's things that, look, there's times when I know she don't want to talk about something forevermore. So I just don't talk about it. Now, there was a time when I'd say, all right, we're not going to bed tonight until we get to the end of this conversation, because I'm not sleeping until I know that you agree with me, or that at least you know how I feel about this. And man, I lost a lot of sleep trying to get this discussed out. But here's the deal. The law and the commandments, they're still there. And so every relationship that we're in, you're going to have to understand. Look, in a relationship with whoever, you need to understand that the freedom from the rules of others' expectations of you does not grow trust. See, love does not mean there's just no rules. We can be whoever we want. We can be ourselves with each other. No, there's rules for you. There's rules for me. There's conforming and transforming that happens between us in our relationship for love to grow, for trust to grow. Okay? If I just look at it and say, okay, we're married now, I can do whatever I want, because how long is that going to last? No, not at all. It's not going to last. There are parameters. And the freedom in trust. See, people look at trust and they say, okay, I trust you so I don't have to monitor anything. I trust you so, we was over there this weekend, and that fellow I was talking to, they have an egg production farm. They have 20,000 laying hens in a chicken house, and it's a big deal. They get 18 or 19,000 eggs a day that they have to stack up and put away in this cooler. And it's big pallets of eggs. And that cooler is at 34.5 degrees. That's where it stays. And he told me, he said, I have an alarm system hooked up to this so that if it starts dropping below a certain point, it alerts me. I come and check it, because if them eggs freeze, you know what 40,000 frozen eggs busted, you know what that looks like? It's a massive disaster. Okay. And so he told me, he said, I trusted the alarm system and didn't realize that it wasn't hooked up right. And it happened to me one time. And he said, we lost about 20,000 eggs. Well, you know what he didn't do anymore? Well, here's the deal. He fixed the system, but he checks it 17 times a day, and he has ever since then. Why? Well, because there's not the freedom to not check up on things in trust. Now, he said, it's alerted me. It has failed. The temperature starts dropping. The alarm goes off now. It works. But he checks it like a bunch of times a day and writes it down on a paper on the wall right there, monitoring it. Why? So that it never creates a problem again. Is the alarm system in place? Yes, it is. Does it work? Yes, it does. But it doesn't free him from his responsibility to maintain it, to check on it. Trust is the same way. We act like if we build trust in each other, then, okay, now we've got it. We have trust now, and so now we don't ever have to fool with it again. And it withers up and dies. Because you let a bunch of other stuff in that is betraying of trust. Whilst at the same time thinking, well, trust is a thing that's already there and we trust each other. It's not freedom from the rules, the laws, and the of relationships. Trust doesn't absolve you of that. You ever seen them? I've always hated this argument. You have a man and a woman, and they're married, and the man is jealous of his wife. And people will look at that and say, well, he's just insecure. about himself. He doesn't trust her. He's just an insecure little man. Oh, no. No. Why would you say something like that? Well, I don't know. I've been alive for 46 years, and I've been around a lot of people, and I've seen couples where the husband is insanely jealous of his wife. And on the surface, you'd say, well, he has no reason to be this way. But I've never seen a single instance where there isn't something going on the other side of the aisle that triggers this jealousy. One trusts and the other one doesn't. Because trust is being betrayed by behavior. And then everybody else on the outside looking in says, well, he's just an insecure man. He's so jealous. He's so insecure. Why? Because he doesn't trust her without checking on anything. See, jealousy is often translated differently. It's called jealousy when it's just somebody that's maintaining. Why you always want to know where I'm at? You better know, or you don't care. I mean, it's kind of one of those things. Her and I have been married for 26 years here in December. And it's just the habit of my life. I mean, I call her a time or two a day. Or if I'm coming home, I'll call her when I'm coming through town and say, hey, you need anything from the dollar store? And 90% of the time, it's no, I'm good. But she knows when I'm coming home. She knows when I'm going to call. Why? Well, because trust is built on action. It's not just faith. Love is faith. Trust is built on something. It's built on love. And love does things, you see. All right, I'm so behind here. He says there, verse 2, for length of days and long life and peace shall they add to thee. Well, why is that important? Well, length of days. There's some people that wish their days weren't so long. They're miserable. And then there's people who lament the fact that they don't have enough days. Days, what kind of days do you want? What kind of life what do you want your life to look like? What do you want your relationships to look like? Days, and wake up another day and be like, oh Lord, I wonder what's going to happen today? What kind of fights are we going to have today? What kind of disappointments am I going to have today in my relationships? Or do you want the day to last as long as it possibly can? Why do you think young people want to stay up all night long? Because the day just ain't long enough. We went over there, and then, of course, their houses, they got a big home, and then there's always people there. There's just always people there. And they're kids. And Nathan and I walked out to the flagpole. He wanted to take down his old flag and put up a new flag. I said, I'll go help you. So we were walking out across there. We get out in the yard, and I turn around and look at their house. And it's kind of a Cape Cod style, so the front porch roof is a lot lower of a pitch than the rest of the house. And on the front porch, there's 2 sawhorses sitting up there. And one of their sons has a gigging boat, and he took his lights off his gigging rig and clamped them to the end of the sawhorses and had them plugged up because they had turned on lights that night before because they were all out in the front yard playing volleyball or something. And there wasn't enough daylight to fit in all that they wanted to fit in. So he put lights up. Length of days. They made the day longer. Why? Hey, because it was a good day. Is that how you want your relationships to be? I do. I mean, if I got up every day and dreaded every day because, I can't wait till bedtime. I just can't wait till this day is over. No, he said, my son, forget not my law, but let thy heart keep my commandments. Why? For length of days, long life, and peace shall they add to thee. What do you mean? Trust will do that? No. You need to remember the commandments and the law. If that's what's ruling everything, then it's going to be a dreadful thing. But hey, they are what's going to provide the boundaries for trust and love to flourish in. Love and trust will never flourish and grow and be nurtured and develop into what they're to be so that there's an abundance and you can give it to someone else unless there's boundaries that are established by commandment and law. You can't live outside the laws of nature and of nature's God. And law and love and trust exist. It'll only be suspicion and jealousy and envy and bitterness and hatred that will take its place. That's why so many marriages fail. There's no boundaries, so trust is not developed, and love dies. Isn't that sad? See how simple that it really can be? And yet we try every other thing. We throw money at it, and gifts, and trips, and acts of service, and, all the love languages. But love can't exist unless there's some boundaries put up first. What do you think your vows are when you get married? What do you think that is? It's establishing some boundaries. Forsaking all others. That's a boundary. In sickness and in health. For richer or for poor. For better or for worse. Boundaries. Till death do us part. Boundaries. Then love and trust can grow. Days not consumed by worry, or fear, or dread, or shame, or guilt, but days filled with joyful memories made. Moments of love and tenderness and expressions of affection and happiness. Length of days, it's not nights that never end. Length of days. Long life, even a short life made up of this good stuff, can feel long and full and fulfilled. And peace. The fruit of this life of trust and love. Remember, the mind's and the heart's involvement in this life of trust are not able to sustain this life permanently without these other two ingredients mixed in every day. And those are, verse number 3, let not mercy and truth forsake thee. It didn't say, don't forsake mercy and truth. You need to understand that these are things that can be offended and driven away by what you allow to reign in your life. If suspicion and judgment and condemnation and anger and all of these things are allowed to drive the bus, mercy and truth will forsake you. They'll just go away. He said, don't let them forsake you. Bind them about thy neck and write them upon the table of thine heart. And look, this is in every relationship. This isn't just in marriages. This is in relationships in family, in church, even with your employer or your employees. I mean, this is a guideline for any relationship. Mercy and truth. You need to understand something about this. Mercy without truth, you will have your emotions alone driving the bus of trust. And you need to understand that if you only have mercy without any truth, then your desire for trust will be led by emotions alone, and then it will make you trust people you shouldn't and not trust people that you should, based on emotions. Well, what emotions? Well, fear, anger, offense. You got to have truth with mercy. That's why he said, bind them about thy neck. Them, both of them. Just tie them around your neck. You ever have something tied around your neck, like a necktie? I can't stand to wear a tie. And it's because I don't like stuff up around my throat. It just feels like you're choking. Why? Because there's not a moment that you have it on that you don't realize you have it on. And he said, bind mercy and truth around your neck. It has to be the thing that leads the way. It has got to be the thing that runs everything. It has to be the sentiment that is at the helm of it all. Truth without mercy, let's flip the coin. Let's say we have truth but no mercy. We'll only allow trust when it's justifiably earned, in your opinion. And there'll be no room for mistakes or forgiveness in that truth. You ever think about that? If there's no mercy, then there's no pathway to redemption. Why is there a need for there to be mercy and truth? Well, I'll tell you why. Has any of you ever made any mistakes in this arena of love and trust? right here, this guy right here has made a bunch of them. And if it wasn't for mercy and truth from other people that I have offended in this manner, then I would be lost. My days would be long nights. My life would be full of dread and shame and disgrace and no hope. But because mercy and truth combined in other people's lives, extended to me, because I am human, I make mistakes. And you do too. We must have mercy and truth from others, or we'll not make it. We'll not make it at all in any arena of life, because without love and trust, what kind of life are you going to have? Do you have anybody in your life that loves and trusts you at all? If you say no, oh, I feel so bad for you. You don't have to live that way. There's hope for there is hope for you. There's a pathway back for you to see life in a different way, to experience life and relationships in a different way. God made relationships between each other, us, so we would understand what He wants with us. And if you can't have a relationship with any person, how do you ever expect to have a relationship with God? You cannot. You will not. That's why it bothers me so bad when I hear people talk about how they just are antisocial. I don't like people. Well, there's something wrong with you. Jesus loved people. He was exhausted. But then He said, but Him seeing the crowds, He had compassion. He was moved with compassion for them. And then He did stuff. He gave them Himself. Why? He loved them. You can trust that, see. The requirement for us to bind them around our necks and write them upon the tables of our heart, you need to understand it's the most important. It's going to be used more than anything else. And then I'll say this, I need to quit. I need to quit. But you need, it says, let not mercy and truth forsake thee. Bind them about thy neck. Write them upon the table of thine heart. So shalt thou find favor and good understanding in the sight of God and man. And then Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, the ones we quote so often about trust in the Lord, lean not to your own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct thy paths. Be not wise in thine own eyes, and fear the Lord, and depart from evil. And then it says this right here, it shall be health to thy navel and marrow to thy bones. I want to tell you something about this. Your navel, your old belly button, do you know that you can put, there is certain oils that if you put them in your navel, that it will heal you. It distributes it better to all parts of your body. Why? Because it's kind of like the central point. That was the place that gave you life before you were born. And it doesn't become insignificant once you're born. I know that sounds kind of weird, but it's a fact. You can research it and look it up, and it's a real thing. But then he follows it up with marrow to thy bones. Do you know that the marrow in your bones is where your blood cells are generated from? Both your red blood cells and your white blood cells. You know what else comes from there? All of the cells that your immune system sources come from your bone marrow. That's why when someone has leukemia, they do a bone marrow transplant, because their marrow is not producing the cells that their immune system needs to fight this off. So they got to give them better bone marrow so that their immune system can draw cells that work. What's your immune system do for you? It keeps you from getting sick and dying. And He said, this right here will be marrow to your bones. What is blood? The Bible says the life is in the blood. It's your life. You cut yourself in the wrong place and you'll die quickly. 2 minutes flat and you're a dead man because all your blood runs out. And He said, this right here, this mercy and truth and trusting in the Lord, leaning not to your own understanding, it's going to be your life. It'll be what gives you life, and it will be what defends your life. It'll be what sustains your life. It's the immune system of your soul, man. this. And I don't know, I got more things to say about it all, but we're out of time. But it's really important. This matter of trust, people say, trust is earned. No, trust is built. And it's built on a specific thing. Don't get them twisted and don't get them backwards. Don't expect trust to be the fruit of something that you do. You got to build it. You got to be intentional with it. It's got to be built on certain things or it won't be real trust. Amen. I'm done.